Welcome back, deep divers. Today we're going to get into some serious brain food.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about David Hume.
The ultimate skeptic.
But guess what?
Hmm.
We're going to see if maybe his ideas can actually help us strengthen our own WM beliefs.
Interesting.
So buckle up.
Yeah.
We're diving into some of Hume's writings.
Straight from the source.
Excerpts from his Enquiry concerning human understanding.
Ah, a classic.
Plus, we've got some expert commentary to help us unpack it all.
And trust me,
Yeah.
this stuff is juicy.
Oh, it is.
You right?
I am. Let's do it.
All right.
So first things first, why is Hume such a big deal?
Well, for starters,
Mhm.
he was writing during this crazy time of intellectual upheaval, like
Yeah.
total revolution in how people thought about, well, everything.
We're talking the Enlightenment, right?
Exactly.
Like revolutions in science,
Mhm.
revolutions in politics,
People were questioning everything.
like literally upending centuries of like assumed knowledge.
Yeah.
So picture this.
Go on.
It's the 1700s,
Yeah.
good Whigs, revolutions, the whole shebang, and then boom,
Well, what?
David Hume drops this mind-blowing book.
The Inquiry
Yeah.
Concerning Human Understanding.
Yeah. I heard this was actually like a refined version of an earlier work he did.
You heard right.
Okay.
So his first big book,
Yeah.
it was called A Treatise of Human Nature.
A treatise of,
Human nature.
got it.
And it was, well,
Hmm.
it was really ambitious,
Okay.
maybe a little too ambitious.
Like,
Hume actually said later
yeah.
that he kind of regretted how dense the treatise was.
Like it was hard to read.
It was tough,
Hmm.
even for,
Yeah.
philosophers.
Okay.
He thought maybe all those words were actually kind of hiding his main points.
So he needed to simplify it.
That's what he thought, yeah.
All right.
So then comes the Inquiry.
Yeah.
And with this one, he really focused in,
Yeah.
he zeroed in on specific ways our reasoning can go wrong
Okay. So
instead of trying to explain, the entire universe.
like he did in the treatise,
Exactly.
he's like, look, here are the places where our brains like trip up.
Here are the traps,
Yeah.
the pitfalls.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he had this cool phrase for it.
Oh, yeah.
He called his method experimental,
Experiment.
but not like in a lab,
Okay.
more like applied to morality and thinking.
So he's experimenting on like,
On human understanding itself. It's like
Okay.
he wanted to dissect how we think,
dissect,
Yeah.
get in there and
see the gears turning,
yeah.
figure out the weak spots.
Okay. I like that. Dissecting how we think.
And the thing is,
Yeah.
he was doing all of this in the middle of this
Yeah.
explosion of scientific discovery.
Oh, yeah. This is
It was an amazing time for science.
right. Yeah. The rise of modern science.
Right.
So like, how does his work fit in with all of that?
Well, think about it like this. Back then,
Yeah.
the hot new idea was this thing called mechanical philosophy.
Mechanical philosophy. That's
Kind of a mouthful.
yeah.
But basically, it was the idea
Mm-hmm.
that the universe works
Yeah.
like a giant, intricate machine
Okay.
with laws that you can discover through reason and observation.
I see. So
So instead of assuming, that everything happened because of God's will,
right.
they were looking for the
Yeah.
gears and levers of the universe.
And mechanisms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of the biggest names in science were all about this. Descartes,
Okay.
Boyle Newton.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the heavy hitters.
Yeah, they were all convinced
Yeah.
that the universe was like this perfectly ordered machine.
Got it.
And even the people who weren't super strict about the whole mechanical thing,
Okay.
they were still drawn to this idea.
It was a powerful idea.
It was,
Right.
think about it.
Yeah.
Newton's Principia Mathematica,
I think it was-
that was a huge win
Yeah, that was a game changer.
for this whole mechanical worldview.
It proved that you
Right.
could use math
Yeah.
to explain how the universe works.
To predict the motions of the planets and
Yeah.
stuff.
Amazing.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
Even Newton,
Yeah.
with all his genius,
Hmm.
he couldn't quite fit everything into this neat mechanical picture.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
Uh-huh. Well, his idea of gravity,
Gravity.
it's pretty basic, right?
Yeah. Seems like it.
We learn about it in,
Yeah.
grade school?
Pretty early on.
But back then,
No.
they couldn't figure out how this force worked.
You mean like,
How it could act across distances,
Yeah.
with no obvious mechanism.
huh, that's interesting.
Right. So
Okay.
So Newton's approach to this problem,
Okay.
it's actually an early example of what we now call instrumentalism.
Instrumentalism. What's that?
Okay, so imagine you have this
Yeah.
super useful gadget.
Okay. but you don't know how all the circuits inside actually work.
Okay, I'm with you.
So with instrumentalism, you're basically saying, hey, this scientific theory, it's like that gadget.
Right.
It predicts things really well, but it doesn't necessarily explain, the deeper reality of how things really work.
I see.
So it's like Newton saying, I can tell you exactly where the planets will be, but I don't have all the answers on why gravity does its thing.
He just knows that it works.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
And this idea of instrumentalism, it becomes super important when we get to Hume.
Oh, I see.
And how he approached skepticism.
I'm intrigued.
But before we go there,
okay,
we can't forget about the religious context.
Ah, right.
This was a time when science and religion were often at odds.
For sure.
And it wasn't just theoretical debates,
What do you mean?
Well, think about Galileo.
Okay.
He got condemned by the church for supporting the idea that the Earth revolves around the sun.
Heliocentrism.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty stark reminder, let me tell you.
Like a warning.
Exactly of the church's power.
Don't mess with the church.
Right.
Okay, so even as science is making all these advances, there's still this, shadow of religious authority looming over everything.
For sure.
And you're saying even Descartes had to, tread carefully.
Even him.
Wow.
And he was a devout Catholic.
He was.
But he still had to be super cautious.
Okay.
So he wouldn't end up, on the wrong side of the church.
Right.
But you know what? In the end, even his efforts weren't enough.
Oh, no.
The Catholic Church ended up banning his work.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Along with a lot of other major philosophical works of the time.
Talk about censorship.
It was a real issue. So this really sets the stage for understanding, where Hume is coming from.
Exactly.
And one of the big things he tackled was this whole question of free will.
Oh, a thorny one.
It is. So, how did that fit into all of this?
Well, back then, questions about free will, they were totally intertwined with these big theological debates.
About
God's power, the problem of evil.
Right.
If God is all-knowing and all-powerful,
then how can we?
Then where does human freedom even come in?
Yeah, the classic dilemma.
Right.
And especially with this whole mechanical philosophy thing.
Yeah.
Suggesting that
maybe the universe is actually deterministic.
Like a clock.
Like a giant clock.
Ticking away.
Wound up and ticking away.
Wow.
So then the question becomes, if everything just unfolds according to these fixed laws, is God even to blame for human sin?
That's a tough one.
It is.
And then, on top of that,
you've got the Protestant Reformation and its emphasis on original sin.
Original sin. Okay. Remind me.
Yeah.
What was that all about?
So the basic idea is we're all born kind of flawed because of, Adam and Eve's disobedience back in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
So it's we inherit this tendency to mess up.
Predisposition to sin.
Yeah, that's it.
Got it.
And for some Protestant groups, this idea of original sin, it really complicated the whole question of free will.
We're not truly free?
Well, it's our capacity for free will is, diminished somehow.
Okay.
And some groups, like the Calvinists, they went even further.
How so?
They believed in this doctrine called predestination.
Predestination, that sounds...
Yeah. It's a bit intense.
It is. What does it mean?
It's the idea that God has already decided who's going to be saved.
Okay.
And who's going to be damned.
Whoa.
Regardless of what we do in our lives.
So in that view, free will is basically an illusion.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's heavy.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
For sure.
So you can see how all these ideas, the universe as a machine, questions about God, free will, they were all swirling around when Hume was writing.
It's like this whirlwind of philosophical and theological questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have this idea of the argument from design.
Right.
Which was pretty popular at the time.
Very popular. So, okay, imagine this.
Okay.
You're walking through the forest.
All right.
And you stumble upon a watch.
A watch?
Yeah, like a pocket watch.
Okay.
Intricate.
Yeah.
Clearly designed.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just assume that it appeared there randomly,
right,
you naturally assume it had a maker.
Well, a watchmaker.
Exactly. So the argument from design,
yeah,
it basically takes that same logic and applies it to the universe. The idea is the complexity and the order of the natural world as revealed by,
Newton and others.
Exactly.
Okay.
All that stuff pointed to a divine designer.
God. I see. So it's like
saying, look, the universe is so amazing. It must have a creator.
Right. It's too perfect to be random.
That's the basic idea.
And this argument, it gained a lot of traction, right? Because of all the scientific discoveries. They were like revealing more and more this supposed
the order, the complexity, the design.
The design. Got it.
And what's interesting is the idea was that human reason, by being able to, understand this divine design, was like sharing in God's divine nature.
Like we have this spark of the divine within us.
Exactly.
So even though the whole mechanical philosophy thing was about finding these natural laws, it also ended up reinforcing,
for some people, belief in God.
That's interesting.
It is.
But it also led to some tricky questions
definitely
about the mind and the soul.
Yeah.
And those questions become really central to Hume's skepticism.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get into that.
Right.
Like, how did this whole view of the universe as a machine impact how people thought about the mind?
So one of the biggest challenges with this whole mechanical worldview was how to explain thought.
Right, because
if everything is just matter in motion, then how do you get something like thought?
Which doesn't seem to be a physical thing.
You can't dissect a thought and look at its parts under a microscope.
Yeah, it's immaterial.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the big question was, how do you get something as immaterial as a thought from something as physical as the brain?
It's a tough one.
It is.
And I'm guessing Descartes had something to say about this.
Oh, Descartes?
He seems to pop up.
Always.
Yeah.
In all the major philosophical dilemmas.
He does. He really does.
He was a key player for sure.
So what was his take?
Well, being Descartes, he had to have a grand theory.
Of course.
So he argued that the mind and the body were actually totally different substances.
Okay.
Like fundamentally different. The mind or the soul was immaterial, independent from the physical world.
So that's the classic mind-body dualism.
That's it.
Wow. Which has been
it's hugely influential.
Yeah, super influential in Western thought.
For sure.
Did other philosophers buy into that?
Yeah. So Locke,
okay.
He had a similar view.
Okay.
But he wasn't as insistent as Descartes.
Okay.
On the mind being totally independent.
Got it.
He stressed that mere matter couldn't produce thought.
Okay.
But he did leave open the possibility
of what?
That God could somehow superadd thought to matter.
Superadd. That's
a very Lockean word.
It is.
So he's saying God could bridge the gap
between the physical and the mental.
Exactly.
Huh. Interesting.
And then you have Berkeley, who takes this whole idea to a whole other level.
Oh boy.
With his immaterialism.
Immaterialism.
Yeah.
Is he saying that? Like matter doesn't even exist?
You got it.
Whoa.
He argued that the world we experience is made entirely of ideas.
Okay, so
our perceptions, they're not caused by, some independent physical reality. They're caused directly by God.
So we're all living in this God-powered virtual reality.
You see that?
Mind-blowing.
It is.
And how did he reconcile this with actual science?
Well, remember instrumentalism?
Right, whereas
scientific theories.
Tools.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Berkeley embraced that idea. Okay. He said, look, the goal of science, it's not to describe some, real mind-independent world.
Okay.
It's about predicting things.
Got it.
Making accurate predictions.
So even though he denies the existence of matter, science is still useful.
It helps us navigate this world of ideas.
Yeah, this God-created world of ideas.
Right.
Fascinating.
And this is where Hume comes in.
Finally.
Questioning.
Yeah.
Even our most basic assumptions.
Okay.
About what we can know.
I am ready for some serious skepticism.
Oh, you're going to get it. So we've got these wild ideas floating around, right? The universe as a machine. Maybe even like a God-powered simulation. And then Hume comes along. And he's like, hold on a minute. Let's take a step back here. And examine how much we really know.
He's not afraid to challenge the status quo.
Not at all.
I mean, one of the things that really struck me was how much emphasis he puts on the limits of human understanding.
He's constantly reminding us that our brains are amazing, but we got to be careful.
Don't get too cocky.
Right?
Like, we're not all knowing.
Not even close.
Especially when it comes to these, like, big metaphysical questions, you know, the nature of reality.
The ultimate questions. The existence of God.
All that stuff.
Hume says abstract reasoning. It can only take us so far.
I see.
We're limited by our experiences, by our observations.
So it's like, we can build all these elaborate theories.
Grand systems.
Yeah, grand systems.
But ultimately, we have to start with what we can actually see. And experience.
What's in front of us.
Exactly.
This reminds me of his argument about the external world.
Oh, yeah.
The idea.
Which we all take for granted.
Totally.
That there's a world out there, independent of our minds.
Right, like objective reality.
But Hume even questions that.
Really?
He does. Saying, are you sure about that? How do you know?
Whoa.
And it's a real head scratcher.
It is.
Hume argues that even our belief in an external world, it's not based on like some rock solid logical proof. It's based on custom.
Custom.
Yeah.
Okay.
And habit.
So we believe in a world out there because we've consistently experienced it that way.
Yeah.
Not because we have some like undeniable logical reason.
Exactly. It's like we've gotten into the habit of believing there's a world out there.
Right.
And that habit, it's become so ingrained, it feels like an absolute truth. But for Hume, it's super important to remember that even this basic belief, it stems from our own subjective experiences.
I see.
We can't just jump outside of our own minds and like prove that there's this mind-independent reality.
It's like, how could we? It's like trying to see your own eye without a mirror.
It's impossible.
So if even our belief in a world out there is shaky, what does that say about all our other beliefs?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right. It's like
it makes you wonder how much of what we think we know is actually
based on solid ground.
Exactly. Hume isn't saying that we should just abandon all our beliefs. But he is pushing us to be more critical.
More critical.
Yeah. We need to be aware of how our experiences. Our habits, our biases. All that stuff shapes our understanding of the world.
So it's like
being a detective of your own mind. You're examining the evidence, looking for inconsistencies, being open to the possibility that you might be wrong.
Okay, I like that.
Be your own skeptic.
Yeah, be skeptical of yourself.
And speaking of questioning beliefs, this is where Hume's views on the relationship between philosophy and religion, things get interesting.
He didn't hold back on that front.
Not at all.
Wasn't he even accused of atheism?
He was, although he never actually
outright denied the existence of God.
I see.
But he was a fierce critic of organized religion.
Organized religion, got it.
And dogma.
So what rubbed him the wrong way?
Well, he thought that religious beliefs were often based on faith and revelation, which he considered unreliable sources of knowledge.
So
for Hume, we should base our beliefs on evidence and reason,
not blind faith,
exactly.
or just accepting what religious authorities tell us.
Right.
He was also pretty skeptical of miracles.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
In fact, he wrote this whole essay called "Of Miracles," where he basically takes down the idea that you can prove miracles happened based on, people's stories.
Testimonies. And this seems connected to his whole skepticism about causation. if we can't even be sure about cause and effect.
In the everyday world.
Yeah, in the everyday world.
Then how can we prove something as extraordinary as a miracle? It's a good point.
Right.
So for Hume, a miracle is a violation of the laws of nature.
Right.
And our understanding of those laws, it comes from experience.
Okay.
So
if we have tons of experiences.
Tons of experience.
That back up a particular law.
Like a pattern we've observed over and over.
Right, over and over.
Then it's super unlikely that one story.
Even a compelling story.
Even a really good story.
Yeah.
It's going to overturn all of that.
It's like, if you've seen the sunrise.
Yeah.
1,000 times.
1,000 times.
You're not going to suddenly stop believing in sunrise.
Right.
Just because someone tells you a story about
one time.
When the sun didn't rise.
Exactly.
Perfect analogy.
So Hume's not saying miracles are impossible.
He's not saying that.
Okay.
He's just setting a really high bar.
A high bar for proof.
For proof, yeah.
I think it's important to address something here.
Okay.
A common misconception about Hume.
Oh, yeah.
And his skepticism.
Gah.
A lot of people think he's saying, we can't know anything.
That it's all hopeless.
Yeah, like we're all doomed to ignorance.
That's not really what he's getting at.
No.
Not at all.
Okay, so.
His skepticism, it's not about giving up on knowledge. It's about being more cautious.
Cautious.
Yeah.
Okay.
And more critical.
More critical, got it.
In how we think.
So recognizing that we can make mistakes.
We can.
That our knowledge is limited.
It's limited, yeah.
So it's more about
intellectual humility.
Intellectual humility, yeah.
Than about embracing despair. Exactly.
Which I think is
I think that's a valuable lesson.
Especially these days.
Especially these days.
When, like...
everyone's
got a strong opinion about everything.
And everyone thinks they're right.
Right.
So, yeah.
Intellectual humility. That's
one of Hume's greatest gifts to us.
It makes us more
open.
Yeah, open to new evidence.
To new evidence.
More willing to change our minds.
Exactly.
And more respectful.
Yeah, respectful of other viewpoints.
Yeah.
And all of this ties back to Hume's emphasis on experience.
Experience.
It's observation. As the foundation. Of our knowledge.
Of knowledge.
Something we've been talking about.
Throughout our whole
deep dive.
But
it's worth
emphasizing.
Yeah, emphasizing.
Because Hume was an empiricist.
An empiricist, meaning he believed
right.
that all our knowledge ultimately comes from our senses.
Okay.
From interacting with the world.
Not from
not from pre-programmed ideas.
Like we're born with.
Right, like innate ideas.
Got it.
So it's not like we just have the concept of, say, red.
Okay.
Magically appearing.
Yeah, in our brains.
In our brains, we see a red apple.
Red apple. Okay.
And from that experience, we develop the concept of red.
I see.
Makes sense, right?
It does.
And this idea.
Yeah, this idea.
It had a huge impact on the development of modern science.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's still shaping how we think about knowledge.
How we think about knowledge today.
That's amazing.
It is.
It's like this reminder.
Yeah.
That we're not just
disembodied minds.
Floating in space.
Yeah, floating in space.
We're beings.
Yeah.
Who live in a world.
In a world, yeah.
And our understanding of that world is shaped.
By our experiences.
Exactly.
So this is where we get to Hume's enduring relevance.
Right.
His insights about
knowledge.
Knowledge, okay.
Think about the limitations of reason.
Okay.
The importance of experience.
Experience, yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
Super relevant today.
I mean, maybe even.
Yeah, maybe even more relevant now than ever.
Because think about it.
We are just bombarded with information.
It's
like
drink from a fire hose.
It really is. It's hard to know what to believe.
What to believe, who to trust.
Exactly.
And that's where Hume's skepticism
and
his emphasis on critical thinking, those become
Yeah.
really valuable tools.
So he's giving us this
framework
for navigating this crazy information landscape and making smarter judgments
about the world.
About the world, exactly.
So he's teaching us.
He's teaching us to be more discerning.
Okay.
To ask for evidence.
For evidence.
To be wary of claims that
So
seem
too good to be true.
Too good to be true, yeah.
Or that
play on our emotions.
Play on our emotions, right.
Instead of appealing to our reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hume's skepticism It's not about
giving up.
Yeah.
It's about thinking more carefully.
More carefully. Okay.
And engaging more actively.
With the world.
With the world, exactly.
Engage skepticism.
Engage skepticism. I like that.
All right. I think our brains need
a little break.
Yeah, a little break. Yeah.
To process all of this.
To process all this Hume. All this Hume.
So let's pause here.
All right.
And come back.
Sounds good.
For the final part.
Okay.
Of our Humean adventure.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we're back.
Back for more Hume.
More Hume.
You ready?
I think my brain has had enough time to, deconstruct and reconstruct itself a few times over.
Gotta love that Humean brain workout.
It is a workout.
It's so...
One thing that keeps coming up for me is how much Hume, challenges us.
He does.
Really examine how we think.
To think about thinking.
It's almost like he's
holding up this mirror to our own reasoning process.
And making us confront all the messy bits.
The flaws.
Yeah, the flaws.
The biases.
And yet, even though he's known as...
the ultimate skeptic.
Right, the ultimate skeptic.
He wasn't saying that we should just give up.
Give up on trying to understand the world. Okay, so it wasn't about throwing our hands up and saying, we can't know anything.
It's all hopeless.
Right.
He was more interested in helping us understand how our beliefs form.
In the first place.
Okay, so,
where do they come from?
Yeah, where do they come from?
What are they based on?
How do we know if they're actually, reliable?
Are they justified?
Right.
And here's the really interesting part.
Okay.
Hume actually believed that skepticism, done right, could make our beliefs
stronger.
Stronger, yeah.
Wait, how does that work?
How does doubting things make our beliefs more solid, right?
It seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
Okay, explain it to me.
So think about it this way.
Okay.
When we acknowledge that we're prone to biases, that our understanding limited, yeah.
Okay.
It forces us to scrutinize. Believe more carefully, yeah.
Okay.
So instead of just blindly accepting what we've always believed.
Yeah, what we've always been told.
We have to ask ourselves, what's the evidence?
For this belief.
For this belief, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any reason to doubt it?
To doubt it, okay.
And by putting our beliefs through that kind of rigorous testing, the ones that survive, they come out
stronger,
So we've
we've examined them.
We've looked at them from all angles.
From all angles, considered counter-arguments.
Okay.
And they still hold up.
I like that.
It's like refining gold in a fire.
Oh, nice analogy.
Right.
Okay, I see it.
The impurities get burned away.
Yeah.
And what you're left with is this pure, valuable gold.
Okay, so our beliefs are like the gold.
Exactly.
And skepticism is the fire.
That refines them.
Love it.
And for Hume,
this process of constantly examining and questioning
their beliefs.
Yeah.
Essential for
intellectual growth.
So it's like he's saying knowledge isn't just about...
It's not just about collecting information. Yeah. It's about actively engaging with it.
Engaging with the information.
Yeah, challenging it.
Challenging it.
Refining our understanding.
Okay, so it's this ongoing process.
It is.
All right, so as we wrap up
our
deep dive into David Hume.
Into Hume.
What are, some of the biggest takeaways?
The key ideas to remember.
Yeah, what should our listeners,
what should they hold on to?
Hold on to, yeah.
For me, it all comes back to intellectual humility.
Intellectual humility.
Hume reminds us that we're not perfect.
Right.
We make mistakes.
We do.
Our understanding
is always limited.
So we should approach
our own beliefs and those of others.
Yeah, those of others.
With a healthy dose of
skepticism.
Skepticism, got it.
Always be willing to ask for evidence.
Okay.
And to change our minds.
To change our minds.
When presented with new information.
So it's not about
being stubborn.
Yeah.
Or clinging to our beliefs.
Yeah, even when they're
proven wrong.
Right. It's about
realizing that we can be wrong.
Okay.
Without falling into a pit of despair.
I see.
It's about embracing this ongoing process of learning and discovery.
It's a journey.
It is a journey.
Not a destination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I bet Hume would be
I think he'd be
fascinated
by the world we live in today.
Oh, absolutely.
So much information. Information overload?
Yeah, information overload.
So much misinformation.
Yeah.
It's like a real-life test of his ideas.
Of his ideas, wow.
Like he would be
right at
home in the middle of all this chaos.
Analyzing it all.
And you'd probably be like,
I told you so.
I told you so.
Right.
And his work.
His work gives us this valuable toolkit for navigating this complex landscape.
This crazy world.
Right.
Okay, so he's teaching us.
He's teaching us to be more critical.
Okay.
More discerning.
You're discerning, yeah.
And more thoughtful.
More thoughtful.
In how we form our beliefs.
I like that.
He's like a personal trainer.
A personal trainer.
For our minds.
For our minds, okay.
Helping us to think more clearly.
Okay.
Avoid those mental traps.
Those mental traps, yeah.
The biases.
The biases, right?
All those things.
All those things.
That can, like...
trip us up.
Yeah, trip us up and lead us to...
to bad decisions.
Yeah, bad decisions, bad beliefs.
And perhaps most importantly, he reminds us that the
search for knowledge.
Yeah, it's a journey.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
Not a destination.
Not a destination.
We'll never have all the answers.
Right.
But shouldn't stop us
from
asking questions and striving to understand.
The world around us. So embrace the mystery.
Embrace the mystery.
Okay.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
And don't be afraid.
To
challenge.
To challenge your own assumptions.
Your own assumptions.
It sounds like a
pretty good Humean motto.
A Humean motto to live by.
To live by, right? All right, fellow deep divers.
Deep divers.
That's a wrap.
That's it.
On our exploration
of David Hume
and 18th century philosophy.
We've given you, hopefully,
a
little taste.
A taste, thought-provoking
ideas.
And hopefully a few tools. To sharpen
your own
critical thinking skills.
Your own skeptical toolkit.
Love it.
All right.
Now, before we go,
okay,
we've talked about how
Hume
challenges
assumptions about reason, knowledge,
But here's a question to ponder. If he's right,
if Hume's right, okay,
and even science relies on this leap of faith.
This leap of faith, okay,
that the future will resemble the past. Does that make science?
Does it make science
less valuable?
Or less reliable?
And what does that mean?
What does that mean?
For how we approach
knowledge
and decision-making.
In our own lives.
Whoa.
Keep those mental gears turning.
Until next time.
Happy exploring.